What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Chilled Outdoors. As you can see, I like to fit my environment. That's because I'm going coyote hunting tonight. But first, I gotta come to y'all with some information. Now, as you can see right here on my home lake, it is frozen. We have ice out here and it doesn't stay for long. In fact, this morning, there was actually pockets of open water out here and now it's frozen again. But thawing ice creates an opportunity for bass fishermen that not a lot of bass fishermen talk about because only certain parts of the country have to deal with this. But when that ice melts, it gives you the opportunity to hammer shad pattern lures, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's get into it. As you know, I'm Brad with Chilled Outdoors. If you are not subscribed right here on the MONSTERBASS channel, make sure you hit the little subscribe button and drop a comment below. Each video, I like to ask a question for everybody to comment below. And since it's snowing and the lake is covered in ice, how about everybody comment below if you like to ice fish and what you like to catch when you do so. Or if you don't have ice right now, tell me what you have been fishing for lately. Drop it below, share your secrets below, let's all share the wealth of knowledge. And if you're feeling so kind, go over to Chill Outdoors, you can subscribe to me over there and see all the shenanigans we deal with. Let's do this so I can go out hunting and you guys can prepare for fishing as soon as this stuff leaves. The shad kill. What is the shad kill? What happens when shad are dying? If you're unaware of this, here's what happens. When the water gets really, really cold, in bodies of water where there are shad, a lot of the shad will die. Now, why is that? First off, most shad are invasive. A lot of types of shad are in lakes that they were not originally in. Birds have carried them there, people have carried them there, eggs get moved around. Have you ever rolled up on the lake any time of the year and you find a bunch of shad floating around dead? Well, in the early spring, late winter, you're probably gonna find that a lot. And there's several different situations that will cause that. So let's just cut out the idea of ice completely. Let's say water temperatures are in the 40s. Let's say around 39 to 40. That's about the range that shad start to have some issues. Suddenly you have a drop in temperature, 20-degree drop. It drops from, 35 air temp to 15 air temp. The water temperature drops 2 to 3 to 4 degrees in a day or two. Shad cannot cope with that. They have issues with their air bladder or whatever it's called, and they cannot regulate where they're at in the water column, and they end up getting in a position where they get too cold and they die. Those fish will float to the top where you see them, or they'll sink to the bottom, or float and then sink. And fish eat them at the bottom, especially catfish that are real, real deep, but they still fall down to your bass, and your bass will feed heavy on that. Now let's talk about situations where there's ice. There was patches of the ice that were missing earlier, and now everything's froze up again. So what happens is those shad float to the surface, water freezes, those fish are locked in there. Later in the winter or the spring, whatever happens, temperatures start warming up, those fish thaw out of the ice and they will literally sink in the water, and they can cause a feeding frenzy in your bass. Or the schools of shad that have not died but are dying will cause feeding frenzies for your bass. You can replicate some of those situations. You can throw certain lures that will make the bass think the shad are dying off, and you can get lit up on bites. So I have brought out a whole bunch of lures that I have had success with in the past, and also a bunch of monster bass lures. In fact, almost this whole bag is monster bass lures at this point. So you have the classics, right? So the Strike King Series 4, the Series 6, the DT6, anything in a white or silver pattern crankbait. Most people are gonna tell you shad patterns work best deep cranking right now, and that is true, especially, it's 20 degrees here. The water is obviously cold enough to freeze. A lot of the times you're gonna have to get deeper. So we have some crankbaits, spinnerbaits. I am not a spinnerbait guy. That's why this spinnerbait is still in the package. Monster Bass gave me this July of last year. With these spinnerbaits, it's still gonna be a reaction, but you can slow it down incredibly slow. The 6XD, if you really are trying to get a little bit deeper, and this is the sexy herring color, but of course could double for shad. Now, something we just talked about recently, lipless cranks. I love lipless cranks. Lipless cranks, the red-eyed shad. In a video I recently made, we talked about how much money pro anglers have made on the red-eyed shad lure alone. And this just happens to be the sexy blueback herring. Looks like a good shad color to me. The red-eyed shad, lipless cranks. This is the Lunker Candy. I made a video about this probably October or November. And this is the blue chrome. So if you have a really, really, really sunny day and you're fishing these cold waters like this, you can go with a silver or a reflective or a chrome. If you have some clear but cloudy day, like right now it's super, super cloudy, I would probably go with a white, bone white, because remember, you're gonna mimic dead or dying shad. If I'm targeting a dying shad technique, I'm gonna be yo-yoing it off the bottom. So I'm gonna cast it out there. I'm gonna let that sucker hit the bottom, and then I'm gonna give it one good bop. But it's not gonna be often. Maybe every 5 to 10 seconds. I want this lure to be like, whoop, and then just float back down and just sit there. I want a big old bass to see this sucker floating back down to the bottom and then just decide, yeah, that looks good. And they'll just suck it up, and when you go to pop it, you'll just feel the rod load up. So just be ready. These could get intense. Lipless are insane. I didn't bring any out here, but flat cranks. I just made a flat cranking video as well. A lipless is basically just a flat crank with no lipless. So, lipless and flat cranks. The obvious one, jerkbaits. People love throwing jerkbaits in the late winter and early spring in shad colors, because oftentimes schooling bass are gonna be suspended, and so are the shad. So shad schools will suspend over deep water oftentimes, and the bass will show up to eat on those suckers. Now, some of them will be dying and going deep. It is what it is, but when you find suspended bass and they are feeding in cold water, I mean, a jerkbait is hard to beat. So we have two different colors of the Vicious Fishing jerkbait. This is the Vicious Fishing Herky Jerky, and it's a 100mm jerkbait. This one is called the Blackjack, and this one is called the Frosty. I think the Frosty would be my first choice right now. It's all white. I mean, it looks like a dead shad floating down to the bottom. And then this Blackjack actually has a pink bottom and a black top. So depending on what kind of shad you want to replicate, Vicious Fishing has you covered. And then the Lunker Hunt /6S. This is gonna jerk to about 6 to 8 feet. You can get into these suckers, the Live Target Twitch minnows. These things look so real, it's not even funny. Now you can weightless Texas rig these and jerkbait them and just let them just slowly sink in the water. You can rig them up on a swim bait head. You can put a small, like 1/8 ounce jig head on it. You can do just about anything with these, and they look so real, it's not even funny. And like I said, this is the Twitch minnow color. So we got some big swim baits here. And again, don't be scared to throw the big ones. If you want a big one, here's the 4 3/4 Rage Swimmers, and then these are Kitech 3.8. And of course, I go with a white or a glitter or a clear, something to mimic dying or dead shad. So here are the big ones. But around here where I'm at, not a lot of big fish in Indiana, so I'm gonna be throwing these little Rage Swimmers. These are 2 3/4. I've actually paired these up before with just a very simple, not even painted lead jig head, and these things swim just fine. You can almost fish them on the bottom, almost like a Ned. I mean, you can let these things go nose first into the bottom and just kind of twitch them along the bottom, or you could swim them for a little bit and then let them die out. So kind of think of a Ned, but with a little bit of a swimming action. Now, speaking of Neds, I'm not gonna forget about them, of course. The Z-Man Finesse TRD. This color specifically is called the Deal, and it's got a lot of blue in it, but it's gray and white and clear with a little bit of blue flake. These twitched across the bottom on a Ned head. For a lot of you guys that love throwing a Ned, your option is right there. Now, probably the #1 lure to replicate a dying fish, just like we talked about, these Twitch minnows, an all white fluke. The Zoom Super Fluke White Pearl. You notice this bag is almost empty. It's because I use these often. Anytime I see shad floating around the water for whatever reason, even if it's in the summer, if I see that there's been a shad kill, I'm throwing a Super Fluke. For those of you who like to jig and you want to craw, you can fish a crawl pattern, absolutely. If you're gonna throw a craw, you can get away with just about anything. Reds, dark blues, black flake. If you're gonna throw a jig and you wanna match that shad pattern, the dead shad, dying shad pattern, check out white trailers, white craws. What do they used to be called? Pork trailers, things like that. This one specifically is the Punch Out Craw in bone white silver. Jean LaRue, of course, out of a Monster Bass box, like almost everything here. The Gambit. The Lunker Hunt Gambit swim baits. I have not tried these yet, but I had these in a review one time from a Monster Bass box. I think it was the Lunker Hunt Takeover box. And people in the comments were losing their mind over this. People in the comments were like, these things will kill it. One guy specifically, I remember the comment, he said, if you buy one, you better buy 10 because you're not gonna wanna stop using them. So the Lunker Hunt Gambit made its way into this video simply by comment recommendations. Of course from a Monster Bass box. Now, for those of you who just love jumping onto bandwagons and you just love fishing big, expensive, well-known, everybody loves them lures, I had to bring out a jackhammer. Brad, it's really, really cold. Are they gonna hit something this fast? Yes. You have the situation where you wished you could be fishing shallow, but you're worried they might be deep. This is a 3/4 ounce jackhammer, and it's in a pumpkin shad color. You go find some grass, find some 8 to 10 foot grass, maybe next to some rocks, maybe next to a deep creek channel where the fish were starting to try to push up. I've seen people on my local reservoir throwing jackhammers prior to turkey season, prior to the spawn. They're out there throwing big chatterbaits. So I had to bring out a jackhammer just to flex on y'all that I got one. White craws, jerkbaits, swimbaits, Lunker Hunt Gambits, swimbait jig heads, Neds, crankbaits, lipless, Flukes, spinnerbaits, swimbaits again, so much stuff. I'm getting snow on everything. Twitch minnows, and of course more hard jerkbaits. Y'all, there's so many options for you guys. If you have any questions about the shad kill or fishing, thawing ice, drop a comment below. I answer every single comment that hits my videos right here on the Monster Bass channel. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you comment below. Make sure you go check me out on Chill Outdoors. I gotta go take care of some coyotes. I'll see you guys later. Peace.